Boom! I wanted to put this video together because a friend of mine, me and a friend were talking about how she wanted to kind of make like a TikTok or a TikTok. She wanted to make like a TikTok and kind of share her story with her journey with God and faith and all this. And just disclaimer, I'm not one of these individuals that I grew up. I'm 36, and I grew up in a time frame where I was very turned off to faith and religion. I don't really lean towards religion 100% just yet. I haven't decided that, but I'm more like spirituality type of like Holy Spirit type of faith thing. And so growing up, I had a little kind of like resentment towards it because I would see people push me to faith, but to church and religion and all this other stuff. But then I would watch them live like a different life, like a hypocritical life, or their actions were very hypocritical, and it kind of left a kind of like a sour taste in my mouth. And so I now at 36, especially in the last like 3 years, have found myself at a crossroads of like, what is my total existence? What is the purpose of my life? What am I here for? And so what the centering of this video is going to bother me. There we go. We're centered. And so what ended up happening is I just pursued it. I just tried to entertain it. The reality of it is I got really depressed, really dark, and I kind of lost myself in the midst of what I was going through. I went through a breakup, I went through a career change, and I was questioning, like I said, my total existence because of the fact that I had acquired money, and I was making like close to 200 grand a year, and I had a bunch of cool cars, and I traveled, and I was doing all these crazy, cool, amazing things. I had a girl that I thought was hot. She was like super cool. We got along great. And then there was just a bunch of like little things. Like I had checked all these boxes, and I just still wasn't satisfied. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why do I have everything that I'm supposed to have, but I still feel empty inside? And obviously, I tried drugs, alcohol, playing around, doing all these things, and nothing seemed to work, right? And so when I hit the career change, and so I kept repeating and kind of marinating in this season of life, right? And so I also have a bunch of information and journal logs and journal entries of like, not really proud of it, but like this is something that I was exploring with. Like there was like mushroom trips that I was doing, and over abusing alcohol, and just really hopeless, just lost, just trying to numb anything and everything. And so I started kind of journaling just some of my experiences in this journal over the last 3 years, and I've kind of used this pattern here to explore. And just like the scientific method, let's just keep it really, really simple. We don't have to get all like, spiritual. We don't have to get all, religious and all this other stuff, right? Like, let's just entry this. Let's just slow motion this, right? And I apologize if I'm a little like amped up about this because I didn't script any of this. This is just something that I feel like in my heart right now, and what I'm kind of experiencing and kind of what I'm noting, right? And so while I'm going through all this, or what led up, like all that led up to me kind of pursuing in a very vulnerable, lost, broken. I keep looking at the camera, like my camera settings are right here, so I'm watching myself, just making sure that the audio and everything's good, and so that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm still practicing a lot of this editing and stuff like that, right? But ultimately, I just close it out so that I can just focus on this, and I won't be looking at myself. But ultimately, out of like hopelessness, out of like trying everything, out of hopelessness and out of trying everything, I was like, you know what? I have tried drugs. I have tried women, sleeping around, partying, drowning myself, doing all that, and it's just, I felt like I was teetering a line, and I was getting ready to lose myself. Also, I was being really irresponsible while I was under the influence of a bunch of this stuff and kind of playing around, and so I just decided that I was going to at least try to get my act together because nothing else had seemed to work. Nothing else had ultimately fulfilled that like void and kind of filled that emptiness that I had inside of me. Even while I was with this amazing person, I had this amazing career. I was having all these amazing things. I was buying all these things. And for those of you that have already worked through this, you kind of laugh and you already know where I'm building this up. But for those of you that haven't and are kind of relating with this, I wanted to put a little bit of emphasis on those things because I thought that was what I was supposed to be working towards. That's what society and school and my peers and social media and the movies and all this stuff was like. This is what you work towards. And I was just like, why do I feel so hopeless, empty, and just kind of lost if I have everything that I was supposed to have? Like, what is wrong with me, right? And so that's what drove me to change. That's what drove me to start noting and just journaling because I was curious. Like, one, I stopped drinking. Two, I ended up breaking up with this girl. And then I also ended up cold turkey quitting this career. And then I was just like at a loop. I was like, everything seems stagnant, boring. What happens? I can't possibly lose anymore because I'm already feeling lost. And so let me ruffle all feathers. And so I ended up breaking up with the girl. I ended up grieving later through that process. And I didn't realize how hard I was going to grieve, right? I think the biggest takeaway from that relationship was the fact that I was more upset with myself for not being vulnerable enough to get off my chest some of the things that I wanted to, and so it was easier for me to run. And that was the last time I did that. And looking back through journaling, I started kind of notating a lot of the times where I had this similar experience with other women that I was dating. We hit it off, super amazing women that I've always dated, super awesome people, right? But I kept running into this problem, whether it was like an alcohol problem, because I was just like voiding, trying to suppress what I was feeling or or replace what I was feeling with like a girlfriend in a relationship, and kind of drinking and still teetering the line and just kind of going back and forth, right? I had like this wave of like really good moments in the relationship, and then I was struggling with my own personal things, and then really good. And so the last relationship, I was still kind of going through this like struggling with vulnerability and kind of like opening up myself and kind of being like, yo, love you. I want to jump into the next season of life. And I also didn't feel like I got that type of, I guess, seat at the table. I didn't feel like I got that level of like safety in a sense. I didn't feel comfortable enough expressing myself in that manner to feel like I can bring these problems to the person I was dating at the time. And again, nothing bad about this individual. I just don't think that this was the right person for me. And now looking back on like my journaling and everything like that and where I am today, I feel like that person was a lesson that came at the expense of losing that person that I needed to go through to get here. And so this is all information that now I'm processing because of everything that I've been looking back on and kind of studying, right? And so then the career change. Having all this money and acquiring all these things left also another kind of void in my life where I was just like, I have all these things that I'm supposed to feel great about. And I'm not trying to downplay the fact that these are awesome blessings, because the house that I'm sitting on, in the camera that I'm shooting with, the lifestyle that I have, all came from or stemmed from this particular career that I had. So I don't want to completely dismiss this thing and kind of be like, regret it, right? Because I don't regret any of this. I now understand more than ever that everything that has happened to me in my past has served as a stepping stone to get to where I am today. And I absolutely love that, and I would not change anything about that. Even if I had the opportunity to maybe make the money or enter that relationship again. If they said, hey, you get to go back to this position, but you have to give up everything that you've gained in the process, would you trade it? No, I can't. I'm sorry. Like, as much as I love that career and as much as I love that person and all those things, right? That was a season of my life that I had to be okay with growing up or out of. Growing up, or I guess elevating from, becoming a better person through those experiences. I try not to look at things as like a negative thing, because it's really easy to focus on the negative things in this society. So I always try to look at things from like a positive perspective. Although there were some negative emotions associated with this particular experience, what were the takeaways? What could I learn? What did I learn from these things, right? And so, and for me, I try not to carry this kind of like this like, what is a grudge? I try not to carry a grudge or anything like that towards these particular situations or life experiences, because I understand the role that they play in my life now more than ever. Whew, running out of breath. I need to learn to pause in between all this stuff. But again, this is me being really passionate and fired up about what I'm doing. And so the career change came up. And then that was something that I kind of also was just like, yo, I have all this money and like making the most money that I have all these things, and what's going on? Empty void, right? Another thing around that same time. And then I was also heavily drinking a lot. I was suppressing a lot of the things that I was feeling, and I was suppressing a lot of the things that I was going through at the time, just learning to cope with things in the manner that I've always coped with them. And so since I had all these 3 things or 4 things going on in my life, the relationship wasn't the thing that ultimately was doing it for me anymore. The career wasn't either. And then my relationship with alcohol was also something that I was dealing with. I decided that it was best for me to ruffle all feathers. And this is where I decided to break up with, like I said, that person, break up with that career, and also break up with my drinking habit. And so I was exploring a little bit with some mind-altering or maybe mind-highlighting or maybe mind-opening type of substances. And this is kind of where all this kind of stemmed from. I ended up hitting my, I guess, truth really aggressive by amplifying it through some things that I was taking in, right? And this is just my own personal choices. I'm not highlighting, or I am not suggesting that anybody go and do certain things. But I'm also not going to say that maybe there are certain things that challenge our perspective that may or may not help some individuals. And so, again, do your own research and just make smart choices. And so around that time and me exploring and doing all this stuff, I kept getting these little, like, I call them little subtle knocks at the doors. And what I felt like were kind of it's not in a religious sense, right? Because I'm not there yet, but definitely felt a presence of like a higher power, right? There was something calling. There's something kind of like, kind of like pulling at me in one direction, right? It's like when you keep seeing, like, people like numbers, right? When people see numbers, they're like, ooh, the numbers, right? Or the cat, like superstitions, right? And so for me, we grew up in like a church kind of like setting and a kind of environment. So like I wasn't super dismissive of it. I just didn't like the way that it was presented to me. So I started doing my own research out of hopelessness, out of trying anything, because I had tried all these 3 things: the relationship, the drugs, the alcohol, traveling, or all these things, right? And none of this stuff seems to work. So out of hopelessness, I was like, let's try God, because we know the road that we're on takes us that way. And I've already had a DWI and some dumb stuff and kind of just lost myself in the world type of things, that I was like, I've never actually been in the Word, right? Let me try to walk the Word long enough to just try the Word long enough and this walk long enough to decide if this is worth it or not. I've tried this relationship, I've tried this career, I've tried consuming these things and handling things in my way. Let's just try this. What do we have to lose? We're already ruffling some feathers. We're already not happy with our situation. So if the ship is already sinking, then let's just try God. And so over time, I kept getting these little subtle knocks. I had a couple experiences that I felt the presence come over me. And I also was trying to break this drinking habit because I didn't like the way that it made me feel. So I spent a lot of time on, YouTube, a lot of time on Facebook, or not Facebook, Google, and just like Reddit, and just using the resources that are out there to try to break a habit. The biggest thing for me was just like, let me break this drinking habit. Let me drown out any discomfort. Let me sit and marinate in the silence and just allow myself to take in what, like, my thoughts and my emotions and the things that I'm feeling, right? Let's not get to those feelings and then drown them, right? Let's not get to those feelings and take something that alters our reality, right? Let's just sit in the God-honest truth of what we're dealing with right now. And so I did, and I had no other choice but to, or how I did this was through journaling. Like, the whole time that I'm telling you this story, I'm journaling some of the substance, the ride that I was having when I was under some of the influence of some of this substance stuff, right? When I was going through these emotions and the doubt, the fear, the uncertainty, there's a lot of information in this journal, right? And so I've been using that as just kind of like to simple scientific method, and just take little data entry points, right? Little points about myself and little patterns. I like patterns. I didn't know this. I'm a pattern person. And so I like patterns. And so I'm like documenting, what are good moods, what are bad moods. I'm documenting what are great days, what are bad days, what makes me feel sad, what makes me feel happy. When do I feel like I had good days? When do I feel like I had bad days? And over time, I've collected enough information over the last like 2-3 years that I now know how I operate. I'm a little bit familiar with myself, and I now have learned about what things to avoid that put me in a slump, right? In a bad mood, that highlight my negative thoughts, that highlight a negative mood, or yeah, that's really it. I've gathered enough information to kind of assess the way, like, my moods. And I started this kind of like with the mood, right? So I would say, like, what was the mood for the day? Like right now, it's kind of like an overcasty mood. Typically, old Fernando, the way that I would do things in that manner, would feel like sad in this type of thing. The sun's not out. I'm a sun person. I didn't realize that I thrive in the sun setting. And so when the sun's not out and there's just kind of like this, it's a Monday, it's kind of like this kind of like transition weather, I kind of struggle with this. And so, or I used to. Now I have trained myself to because of my patterns, I am familiar with how much I have to work a little bit harder, not harder, but the route that I have to take. Excuse me. I'm a hands person. I'm a hands talker. And so I have realized that there is a certain type of approach I have to take to these kind of days. And so with that being said, I've learned all this through like journaling these patterns, right? When the sun's out, when the weather's good, I have a different mood. I wake up and I'm in a better. It's easier for me to be positive, right? I don't have to work at it that hard because the weather's nice. So that helps. And then also too, what's going on in business, right? Am I seeing some challenging things in business where, maybe financially I'm running out of resources because I'm growing in business, right? And I need more stuff coming in. It's not the easiest market to navigate right now, right? But I've learned a lot about myself through journaling these moods, right? So I take like feeling happy. Well, what made it a happy day, right? Feeling sad. What made it a sad day? And then what I do is I just take a little bit of that information and say, okay, what is going on in your life that also adds to the happy or the sad? What's the weather condition? What's going on in business, in your personal life, right? And so all this information has allowed me to further learn a little bit about myself. But the most important thing that I want to highlight here is going into it pretty aggressive, because this is the thing that I'm into now, is my relationship with faith and my relationship with God, right? And so I've realized how my thoughts, and so the way that I break this down is like, we are already of the world. We're already of the world. So there's like a team, right? A team setting, right? It's like when you get out of high school. And so you get out of high school and you have the recruiters for the military that try to pull you in, right? They try to give you this. And then you go to college and then there's credit card people that are trying to get you to get credit cards and do all this stuff, right? So it's kind of like the same thing what happens with, in my opinion, with faith. We are already of the world, right? So we're already in the worldly things. And so if we are already in the worldly things, then what do we... My mind's racing, and I got caught like in that thought. And so like I paused and I was like, whoa, someone's texting. It's probably business. Oh man. And so, yeah, since we're already in of the world, then it takes work to become of the word, right? And so, it's one thing for me, in my opinion, and just the way that I go about this, it's one thing to be familiar with the context of the Bible, but then I think where I get the better results is when I'm actually trying to live out and practice and like live out the word, right? And so that's kind of where I wanted to spin all this into like this segue type of thing. Somebody liked my post. I've been trying to get like my social medias going back up because I'm trying to market and grow the business, and so it's hard doing everything, which is kind of like part of this stuff as well too. And this still might be a little crooked, I think, but whatever, maybe we'll leave it. And so right now what I'm doing is I'm sitting in here. It's the end of my Monday day, and I've caught up from the weekend of what I have going on, and so I'm just like one, celebrating my wins, but church had something for me that kind of resonated with me, and it was talking about music. And I'm currently, check this out. So I bought this MIDI controller, and I also had this little like small MIDI controller. Um, Secondhand. I'm not. I am one of those Facebook marketplaces where I'm like, would you take half? And is this still available? Anyways, the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I've been kind of just to relax and kind of just turn all this off. Um, I kind of started wanting to tinker with playing the piano, and I've been kind of working on self-teaching myself to that. But it was funny because I went to church this Sunday with one of my friends, and we haven't been in a while. And the service instantly jumped into music and the importance of the songs that we sing, right? And so it was like a deeper analogy, but to me it was kind of cool because of the fact that I'm more mindful of what's going on around me, and it was just a coincidence, right? Like a coincidence that music was the thing that the service was about, as I'm also kind of venturing into a little bit of like music as a hobby and kind of just, using it for fun, right? And so the reason why I'm this far into music or kind of learning this is because I've kind of felt that thing kind of come over me as far as like expressing myself like I'm doing this, but also a little bit of therapeutic, because there's something soothing about sounds and learning about music and things like this. And so there was also a different service that also kind of dropped the seed about music, because they were talking about certain songs that were top hits currently in that season. He used that as evidence to do his service, the pastor did, the priest, pastor, whatever you want to call him. And so I've just been pursuing this, but these are also notes and stuff that I've been taking on, where like I'm kind of using the same details of the day to like, how is music also being placed in and around my life, right? And so but back to like the how I leverage like faith in all this is I go to church on Sundays to kind of to charge my batteries, like my spiritual batteries. And then also too, I also use the Bible to like support evidence into what I'm doing. And so the reason for all this now, to tie it all back together, is like I said, leveraging the word, right? And so these thoughts that I used to have, or a lot of it is challenging my own mentality, right? How I used to do things, or how I did things, or I've always done things this way. And so I also now am having another growth season in my life because I have more business. I have more business. I realize that there are a lot more people around me that kind of like feed off the energy that I kind of bring around. I also realize there's a little bit of like an influence that I have with certain people around here, right? Like they come to me and they bring their problems to me and they share certain personal things about because I'm so vulnerable with what I'm doing. And the reason why I do this is because I needed this, right? And so part of me doing this is kind of like, I guess in a sense, like healing or working through some things that I needed to kind of work through in order to be a better person. And so part of tying all this together is because through the evidence of everything that's been happening in my life, it seems like God has been playing a role every step of the way. And so I like this relationship and where this relationship with faith is going. And so for me, it's important to leverage the word in some of the things that I do on a daily basis. And so right now, this is a prime example of something that I have been really using to leverage. And it's in Romans 12. It's verse 2. Yeah, verse 2 pretty much. And so it says, and like it's titled, this passage, like the 12th passage is titled The Living Sacrifice. And I don't know the terminology of the Bible. This is all new to me, right? Excuse me. But your boy did highlight it there on the bottom. There, and then also up here on top. And if you look at that, and so it's, I'll read it to you guys. And so it says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So I'll read it again because that was kind of butchering. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And so to me, this is super, super beneficial, because as I'm growing in business, as I'm growing as a man, as I'm growing in influence, as I'm growing in responsibilities, as I'm growing in like discipline and all these things, I'm having to challenge my old mentality. I'm having to question why I've done certain things in a certain manner. Just make sure how long this video is going. What time is it? We'll wrap it up in about 30 minutes. It's 25 minutes. And so I've had to challenge the way that I'm growing. I'm having to challenge a lot of old mentality. And here's something else that I've also had to do. I have had to allow myself to accept a new way of life. And what I mean by that is that every step of the way that I have documented in these journal entries I have grown. I have gone back and looked at certain goals that I had for that season. I have also, oh man, I'm gonna call him back. I have also have had to let go of old ideas and old ways that I would think. And what's happened with this is the fact that sometimes when I'm venturing into new unfamiliar territories of like growth in all business, personal life, relationships, faith, spirituality, all these things, you get these little thoughts. You get these weird little thoughts, these little negative little thoughts. You want to retaliate in a certain manner that you used to. You want to respond and you want to react. You don't want it's pride, it's ego, it's a lot of these things. And so what I've had to do is learn to not give those thoughts any weight. Learn to not give those thoughts any more fuel or any more energy so that it doesn't contaminate the forward progress that I've made. And so part of leveraging that this journal entry here that it talks about, that's so spot on. So what I do when I'm like trying to leverage faith in the word is I use the Bible app. I get on the Bible app and I go to the search bar in the Bible app and I just type in something like stress. I type in tension. I type in doubt, fear, all these things. And then I go through the passages and I just go through the passages and I just find what works. I find one that resonates with me, and then I grab the Bible and I sit down and I go to that particular passage or quote. And then from there, I kind of read and study a little bit of what's going on in that context. Something that also has been very beneficial is I'll use the Bible Project on YouTube. The Bible Project on YouTube tells me a little. Tells me a little bit more about what's going on in that particular. I'm gonna lock the wheel so this doesn't roll because your boy can't sit still. And so part of the Bible Project, what it does is it gives me a visual outline or story. It paints the visual picture of what this particular context is. Excuse me. And so now that I have a visualization of what this passage is, right, Romans, for example, then what I do is I study the word a little bit in the book, in the Bible, and I kind of apply that, not kind of, but I do apply that into my life. And so as I wake up every day and I have a little bit of a negative thought, I have something that's trying to overcome me. Now more so than ever, do I go to the Bible and I just find something. So I actually have these little posty thingies, right? These little big, what are they? Are they Post-its? No, they're Post-its. They're Post-its, little page divider things, right? So I do that. And so what I do is then I put those at the edge of my book, my Bible. You can't really see that. Can you see that? Maybe. Yeah, there you go. You see? I've got them all here. And so that is what allows me to go back and reference some of these things. So anytime I'm feeling some sort of anxiety, some sort of pressure, anytime I'm feeling some sort of like negative type of thought, I have found Romans 12:2 This passage that I just read, you guys, that's literally says that. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. Do not be transformed by the renew. Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, perfect will. That right there has been like boom in this season for me, right? Because I'm challenging new thoughts, I'm growing, there's new things, these little old ways and these little like evil ways or whatever you want to call it, the worldly ways are trying to pull me down. And I have way too much forward progress to be held down. And I'm also realizing that in my head, because of the work that I've been doing, there's more blessings that I'm receiving. There's more benefits to me staying on this path. And as you walk this journey, you're going to be tested along the way because the world is designed to keep you here, and we are making an honest effort to try to keep walking this path forward. The other one that I like in this that solves a lot of my problems is the final instructions in 1 Thessalonians 5:12 through like 22 or 12 through like 24. And it says, I'll just read my favorite parts about this. And it says, we urge you, brothers and sisters, warn those who are idle and disruptive, encourage the disheartened, help the weak, be patient with everyone. Make sure that nobody pays back wrong for wrong, but always strive to do what is good for each other and for everyone else. And that right there is just something that is just like, I get up every day and I'm like, ooh, don't do this, don't be negative. Maybe help people out in this manner, call people out and kind of be like, hey, have you thought about maybe doing things this way, right? Not pushing it on people, but just making small suggestions to kind of help guide people along this path and be like, hey, let's maybe try things from this perspective, a welcoming approach instead of telling someone what to do, but then me running off and being hypocritical in what I'm doing, right? And so this is how I leverage the word. And so I got to jump back on this call and take care of some business, but I wanted to do that because of the fact that I think now more than ever, it's important to have a little bit of some sort of help as we navigate this weird, interesting world. That's it. That's what I have so far. This was just something that I wanted to tie into a little bit of kind of like what built me up and what led me to get here, and then how I'm using this to have like the utmost benefits in my life. You can't fake this. I tried it, and the good Lord is a funny person because he knows where your heart is and where your intentions are, and I know where mine are. And so there was a moment in time where I was trying to fake this and kind of like pretend that like, oh, I'm working, when in reality I wasn't. And the Bible talks about kind of accountability and discipline and doing certain things. And so I think part of this walk is also holding myself accountable to certain things and also notating just the results that I'm getting, right? Because I've been familiar with a certain walk, like a worldly walk, and the results that got me: legal trouble, DWI, recklessness, emptiness, brokenness, all this stuff, right? I hurt people, hurt myself type of stuff. And so since I'm kind of familiar with that, I'm also notating what's happening with this walk that I'm on now. And so I will show you a little bit more of how this works because I've got more journal entries. I've got more detailed journal entries. They're a little bit longer. There's less line spacing in these. I mean, there is so much information in these journal entries that I'm utilizing to just be mindful of what's going on around my life and then make adjustments accordingly. And so I hope this information helps. If this video resonates with you, I'm working on doing these a little bit better. I have seen an increase in business in my life, and I do realize that there is like structure in certain things that I'm working on to better have a quality of like work-life balance. And so it's going to take me a little while to keep doing this, but I was inspired today by a conversation that I had with a friend around this particular subject, so I wanted to drop this on the fly. I apologize. This is not scripted. This is not something that I really put a lot of thought into. It was just kind of a spur of the moment because it's just something that I feel so heavily passionate about. I hope this helps you guys. Feel free to, I was going to say talk crap in the comments, but feel free to do that too. And if you find something that shares that resonates with you, that like kind of plants a cool little seed that maybe you can run off with, like feedback helps a lot. Or just like, hey, dude, didn't even think about that way. Appreciate it, So have a happy rest of the May. Peace.